Hello and welcome. This is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and in today's training video we're going to show you a dynamic drop down list with pictures and the ability to filter based on the selection of that. It's going to be an amazing training, something you've probably never seen before, certainly something I've never taught before, and so let's get started. Alrighty, I'm so excited to have you here today. We've got so much to cover. We've got a very cool feature I don't think you have seen before. In fact, I did a quick search on YouTube and to see if there was anything like this. I couldn't find anything that had a dynamic drop-down list with pictures on it, so I thought I'd bring it to you and see just how we can do that. But of course, before we get started, if you are interested in drop-down list, I do have an advanced reports and graphs dashboard masterclass that also contains a different type of an amazing drop down list where you can create automatically Excels, or you can create any type including PDF picture with our dynamic drop down list here. And we also have the ability to email as a specific PDF, Excel, or picture. That is in our dashboard masterclass. That also includes custom reports where you can create any type of custom report simply by creating a report and then customizing it. We also have the ability to toggle columns on a single click. So we've got a ton of features. You're going to learn how to make all of this on your own and create your own dashboards in our masterclass. So I'll include the links down below. If this is something you like, you will love this type of training. So I can't wait to show that to you. All right. Wanted to show that. Let's get started back to the training because we've got a whole lot to show you and a brand new technique that I'm going to show you today. And of course, that is the ability to create a dynamic drop down list with pictures, and so it automatically highlights on hover. In fact, that drop down list actually changes based on the filter by. So when we select maybe color and we want to filter by colors, we have the ability to do just that. Or if we want to filter by type, we just click type and then we have the ability to select by type. So this is a great way, especially if you have something like an inventory program or you want to filter, or you have something visual that you want. It's a great way to show that for end users, the ability to filter items by this. In fact, there's a 1,000 types of uses you can use these pictures in, and I'm going to show you exactly how I did that in today's training. So let's get started. We do have a basically inventory list, just a sample inventory list here, and this includes three different types here. We have types, we have style, and we have color. So that's going to be separated. Each of those has four different specific categories here: men's, women's, kids, and babies. And we also have, of course I have to show you that, the picture on selection. That's cool. The ability to style. We have a style, four different styles: hoodies, polo, sweatshirt, t-shirts. And of course we have the four different colors: blue, red, white, and green. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to include this in the download link, and I'm also going to include all of the pictures for you in a download link. And that link, whether you're using Facebook or email, I'm going to include that in the description. So make sure you get a copy of this application. It's absolutely free, and of course it'll be in a zip file because I'm going to include all these pictures so that you can create this and test it out yourself. So I'll include that all in a zip file. Make sure you check the links below and take care of that. Also, if you have not yet, I create these videos each and every Tuesday, unique videos, ways you may never have used Excel, creating real solutions to real problems. So make sure you subscribe and click that notification icon down below, and I'll make sure you get videos each and every Tuesday. So it's a great way to do that, and I don't miss a Tuesday generally, so I want to make sure you always get unique trainings. We do amazing projects, unique trainings, and tons of features that you may not have seen, like this one with drop down. All right, so continuing on, we have the ability to hover and highlight a specific button or menu option here. We have the ability to then, when we select an option, to have that option appear along with its picture in there. So as I showed you before, we do have these pictures, all the pictures here, whether it's babies, kids, men's, and women's here in the folder. We also have the colors blue, red, green, green, and white here. And of course, we also have the types here, men, women. Oh, I showed you that already. So we have also the ability to, we just chose like a type hoodie, a polo, sweatshirt, and t-shirt. So we have those types in different colors. So we have all those. So what I want to do, the first thing I want to do is I want to separate all of the types, all the styles, and all the colors into a list. And I've done just that here. And this table is all 4 of those types here. So we have women's, men's, kids, and babies. Here as types, as colors, we have red, white, green, and blue as colors, and of course as styles and polo, t-shirt, hoodies, and sweatshirts. So we have those. So we have filter by 3 different times. Each one of those contains 4 different items. So we have all that in a link, in a list, and along with a picture link. Now this is a picture link. I'm going to clear this out because your link will not be the same as my link. So make sure that if you want to test this out, you put your link wherever your file name here is. Make sure you replace that with wherever you put your folder when you want to test it. I'm going to include that folder with you, so make sure you do fix this link. We can also include a browse button, but you can put this. It's very easy to put this in. So when you have your file name, all you want to do is just click your location here and just copy that location and put that right in here so that your links will work and they're all live links. So that's important. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is when a user selects a specific type, style, or color, I want to filter this list here by only that type. So in other words, I want to create an advanced filter and I want to see only styles. So in this case, it would be polo, t-shirt, hoodie. So I want to filter by this. And I've done just that here. Here is our advanced filter criteria. Filter by and then style. So we create this advanced filter, and I'm going to show you how to do it, and we use this style as the criteria. So our results will come right here. Right? So here we see that we're going to filter by style, and our results are these items: polo, t-shirt, hoodie, and sweatshirt, along with the link. That link is critical because that's going to get us our picture. So along with our link, so we have that. So for example, if we change this to color and we go ahead and look at our results, we see that our criteria has changed, and we also see that our results have changed. Now, how do we get this to change? Well, we can use VBA, or we can just simply use a formula. In this case, I've used a formula so that any change on D3 automatically comes to criteria. So that's never going to change. So it's fixed there, which is a great way to set our criteria dynamically based on another cell. So we've done just that. So we have the filter by, which is the heading. Now that's critical. Remember, this heading, filter by, and this heading must be exactly the same. If I change the text on this slightly different, it's going to create an error. So we want to make sure to keep those. And the same thing here. We also want to make sure we have the exact same headings in the results as we have right here. So make sure those, in fact, I just usually copy and paste them right here. And that way our results are accurate. And of course, for the last one, if we were to change it to style, I can't remember which one we had there. We also have, we had style already. The first one we need to select, just so I can show you the sample, but you get the idea, is type. So when we select type, we have now women's, men's, kids, and babies, our type, and then we have the links to those specific types. Now what I want to do is I want to take these words and I want to put them into this list right here. This list right here: men, women's, men's, kids, babies. So I want to create that specific text right here, and then I want to take the pictures from those links and I want to place them right before there. So that's what I want to do. So I want to take this text and I want to take this links, and we can do that using a button, or a shape, I should say. So for example, if we go into the home, let's drop this down, let's pin this for now. If we insert a shape, and just to say I choose a square shape right here, and then and then we have our results, right? Our first result's always going to be here in V4. Our next result's going to be in V5, 6, and 7, and so on. So if I want to make this women's, I'll just click on this and I'll say equals V4, and that's automatically going to put women's there. So that's the first part. And if I were to duplicate this, Control D, and then I wanted to change this one to V5, so I do that. So that's just what I did. I created shapes. and I put those shapes right here and right here. And then let's do another one. Let's do them all. We'll recreate this. Control D, Control D. So I'm going to duplicate it twice and bring it down here and bring it down here. So now we've got 4 different buttons, and let's align those. Align them to the left, and then we're going to distribute them vertically so they're all lined up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to V6 and then V7. All right, so now we see the list that's starting to come. So now we've got our list, and let's go ahead and make this white without borders. So we're going to shape fill. We're going to fill it white, and then we're going to say no outline. Now you start to get a picture of how we can do that. So so now we've got our list. Now let's take a look and change it. So now we've got our list, and now let's change it to style. And you'll see automatically the names change because they're based on the values here. So when those values change, our button, our shape text changes automatically. And again, the same thing with colors. If we change that, all right, so now we see how we've gotten our list, but now how do we get the icon? So if we do this and we do this, and then we can add a little bit of space in there by right-clicking size and click format the object, and then we'll go ahead and click text box, and we want to add some left indentation. So maybe 0.3. Let's take a look at that. 0.3, yeah, that should be fine. So now we have space for the icon. So how do we get that icon in there? Well, in V, we have the link. We have the link here. We know where the picture is located here. So now all we have to do is use a little VBA and place that here in relation to the button, So let's just go over that part of the code right here so that we can see exactly how we've placed the icon in relation. I call it an icon, a picture. Basically an icon is a small picture, so I'll call it an icon in this sense. In this case, I'm calling this a picture, and I'm going to call this an icon. So these small pictures we're going to call icons. So when we click those, we want that to be displayed right here and here. So we want that icon there. All right, so continuing on, we understand how we have our list now. But what about this border? Look, it's got a black border around it. How do we do that? Well, that's just a simple shape border. So if we were to insert a shape and insert another square shape, and then of course we want to clear that out, so we would click no fill on that. No fill, and then we would change the border. Let's change the outline to just a very thin outline on the weight, and then change it to the shape outline here, black. Here we go. Okay, so now we've gotten that. So now we have our look a little bit. We have our look of our drop down list right here. So now we just need to add the pictures. We can do that through VBA, and basically all we're going to be doing is taking a picture from our list. Let me go ahead and pull that up here, and you can see. So let's just say we have this red hoodie here. What I'm going to do through VBA is just take that, set a specific size. So I'll set the size in VBA very, very small, and then we'll just make it here like this. So we'll put that icon right there, and I'm going to place it right here in relation to the shape, and then I'm going to do that for all of them. Of course, this would be hoodies. So for example, this one would be style, and we put the hoodie down here, so we want the hoodie. So that's how basically we're going to do it, but we're going to do it through VBA to see just how we do it. So let's get into the VBA and start from there and see how we did the code part of this. Now that you have a basic idea of what we're trying to do as far as building our drop down list, and then after that we're going to get into how we change the looks on hover. So we're going to get to that as well. Let's continue on into the developers. Click on the Visual Basic. If you don't have the Developers tab, make sure you can locate it into the options, and of course you'll find it here into the Customize ribbon, and then just select on the Developers tab. Alt F11 is the shortcut that will get you there. Let's go ahead and get in, and we have a drop down list module here. Drop down list module. So that is a great way to do that. Let's take a look at this module so we can see just how we created it. We have a macro in here called build list. build the list. So we have a macro there, and that macro is going to actually rebuild our list each time. So that macro actually runs, let's go ahead and close this out. We don't need that. So that macro runs each time we build the list. So for example, if I change this style to type, that list is going to get rebuilt. So you can see men's, women's, kids, and babies. Whereas if we change it back to style, it's going to rebuild the list to polo, t-shirt, hoodies, and sweatshirt. And likewise on the color, we're going to also see red, white. So it gets rebuilt each time, and each time we rebuild the list both on the text, of course, and the colors. Now the text, we understand, we know that we're going to run the advanced filter, and that's going to automatically take care of the text in those shapes. The text in those shapes are automatically can be based on this, but so that's all we need to do is run the advanced filter in VBA, and we'll walk through step by step now so you see just how we did that. First of all, we're going to dimension the picture number as long, because I'm going to run a loop. I'm going to run a loop from picture number equals 1 to 4, 1 to 4. So we need to run that loop and dimension that as a long number, as a whole number. So that's important. And of course, we're only focused on one sheet, so we're going to do with sheet 1, and that's going to end all the way up here to end with here. So we're going to be focused just on sheet 1 for our macro. And the first thing I want to do is I want to clear the previous results. That's in V4 through W10. We're going to run a brand new advanced filter. So we want to clear the results in V4 here, starting here, through W7. I guess we didn't need that. We don't need any more than that for now, but so basically these are the primary cells we need to clear out, because we're going to run a brand new filter, advanced filter, based on this criteria right here. So we need to at least clear that out. All right, so we can do that in our code with just that line V4. This could be W7. We only have 4 results. You may have more, but either way, it works just fine. So the next thing is we want to have a selected icon delete, clear out any possible icon. What is this? Well, the selected icon is a name that I automatically assign to the icon which has been selected. That is this right here. So if we can, they're all going to be the same name, and you want to stick to that. Anytime you you select something, you're going to see an icon appears here. If you click on that, you're going to see that name is selected icon. That is the same name that is assigned regardless of the icon. Regardless of the icon, it's always going to be that name, so it's much easier to delete. So even if we select a green color and we click on that icon, we're going to see that this also has a selected icon name. That way, when we want to delete it, we just delete it. So the first thing we want to do when we rebuild this list, we want to delete that icon. You'll see it's been deleted. That icon's gone. So when we rebuild the list, and I rebuild the list every time a user changes here, the list gets rebuilt. So we want to make sure to delete any selected icon that is here. So that's an important step. So we delete that icon. It always is going to have the same name. And we do that with just this line of code. Shapes, selected icon, delete. We also want to need this here. We don't need these 2 lines here, but we do need the next line. And why do we need the next line? We need it here, actually, because if this selected icon does not exist, if it does not exist, it's going to return an error. So to avoid that error, we wrap it in on error resume next, and on error go to 0. So what that does is just in case this icon has already been deleted for any reason, then it will not provide an error. So it'll not create an error. So that's why we wrap it there. All right, the next up, we're ready for our advanced filter. We don't need to put in our criteria because our criteria is already there, because it's our criteria, which is right here into T4. It's already there because it's fixed. It's based on a formula. So our criteria is going to be based on T3 through T4, T3 through T4. That is what our criteria is going to be. So when we create this, it's automatically set, so we can move on to that. So we're ready for our advanced filter, and this is a fixed in this case. It's P3 through R15. That is our first advanced filter. That is our original table. And what is that? That is all of our types, all of our colors, all of our styles and colors in here. So we're going to start at P3, including the headers, all the way to R15. So that's the entire table. This is the original data that I want to filter. I want to filter it by style so that the results are only those that are which style. So we can do that. Continuing on with our advanced filter, we're going to copy this. We want to copy it to a new area, and the criteria is just what I explained to you, T3 and T4. Remember, T4 is fixed based on a formula. We're going to copy that to the range V3 through W3. Those are the headers, V3, and of course we want unique records as true. So that little line of code right there is going to get us our results, and they're going to put them right here, right here. So each time we have those results, because we know these names are linked to those shapes, so we need to do that. And then we're going to take these, we're going to run a loop. I'm going to run a loop from rows 4 through row 7, and I'm going to pull each of the icons from this link. I'm going to take this link, I'm going to pull it up, I'm going to shape it, and I'm going to place that icon. I'm going to put each one right here into these little areas right here. So we're going to put them right there based on the shape. So that means if for some reason we move it, it's always going to based on the shape. So it's really, really handy. The location, it's not based on the cells, it's based on the individual shapes within this. So we're going to show you how we did that. All right, so now that we have our results, we can start our loop, just what I explained to you. For the picture number equals 1 to 4, we've got 4 different pictures, 4 different items. The first thing we want to do is I want to delete whatever icon is in there. Icon and the picture number. Now I've named my icons. These are the icons in the individual list. Icon 1, icon 2, icon 3, icon 4, etc. So let's take a look at that. If I click on a specific icon, you'll see this name is icon 1. And it's always going to be icon 1 regardless of the type of icon there. That's easy. And of course this one's icon 2, 3, and 4. So now we have it. So now we've got that. So that's what I want to do is I want to create an icon based on a picture, and then I want to give it a specific name. So we're going to use, the first thing I want to do is when we recreate this list, I want to make sure that any previous icons are deleted. Otherwise, we get way too many icons that are the same name. We don't want that. We want to delete all of the icons first, and we have given them a specific name. So the first thing we want to do is delete the icon 1, icon 2, all the way through 4. So that's how we do that in the code there with that one line of code. You can delete that, and again we've wrapped it in on error resume next and on error go to 0 just in case the picture has already been deleted or does not exist. We don't want this to return in an error or bug, so we've wrapped it in on error. Use these sparingly because you don't want to have an error which you cannot find, so be careful with this. Don't use it too much, but in this case it's important in case it doesn't exist. All right, now we're still within our loop. In fact, let me go ahead and bring this over so our loop is clear. Our loop starts for picture number and then it goes all the way here. So all of these items are in our loop. It's going to loop 4 different times. First thing we did was delete it, and next thing is with the pictures insert. We're going to insert a picture. Now what is that picture? We're going to find that link, and our first link is where? Our first link for the picture is right here located in W4. So now we know if our link's in W4 and we're going to run from 1 through 4, our link is located in the icon number or the row number plus 3, row number plus 3. So we have the picture number plus 3, right? Because this is going to go from 1 to 4. And we want the first one's in W4. So how do we get W4? We use the picture number, which is 1 plus 3, and that's going to 4. So I need to find that link for that picture, which I just showed you, and place it. I want to insert it. So this does it. As long as this pathway is good and it's proper for the picture, it's going to produce a picture. So it's going to insert a picture into our specific Excel. It's not going to size it yet. It's not going to place it yet. All it does is insert it. The next thing we want to do is I want to make sure that we've now with shape range. This is going to call out this with dot shape range is going to call out that specific picture that we just inserted so that we can work with that picture. First thing we want to do is we want to set the aspect ratio. I don't want this. I want this aspect ratio locked. I don't want our picture to be skewed with too high or too wide. I want it to keep the aspect ratio and maintain that aspect ratio. We can do that by locking the aspect ratio with MSO true. I'm going to set it at a height of 16. 16 is just the height that we'll set it at in the menu. And then the most important thing is I want to assign a name to this, and I want to assign a very specific name. The icon, the text icon plus the picture number. So that's going to give us our name, icon 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that makes it very easy to track, very easy to delete, and that way we don't have multiple icons with different names. So that's it. The first thing, so what we're going to do is all we're doing is setting the size, setting that there's aspect ratio, and setting the name. Now we are ready to work with it. Now we're ready to place it, and we can do that and make it visible. And now we can do that using the name. So again, with the shapes icon and picture, now we are ready to work with it based on its name here. The first thing I want to do is I don't want to make it visible. Just building the list, I don't want to make it visible. For example, when I rebuild the list, let's say I change it to style, I don't want to display that icon. We're just changing the list. I only want to display it when a user clicks in here or clicks on the icon here. Only then do I want to actually display that picture. So I don't want to display it once it's changed, right? We're fine. It's built, it's ready to go, but I only want to display it when we click on it. So initially we're not going to display it. So the visibility is going to be false, visible false. I just want to create it, I want to place it, and I want to size it, but I don't want to display it yet, okay? So now where do we want to place it? Well, I want to place it to the left of a specific button. Now, you remember, I've created 4 different buttons, and I've given those buttons specific names. Let's take a look. This way we can easily track the button. So these buttons, let's take a look at the buttons. I've created 4 different buttons. Remember, we created 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I've given those names, button 1, button 2, button 3. So if we look in here, and it's easier if we go into the shapes, and we take a look down here into our shapes, and we see we have button, if we select on button 4, we see this is button 4. If we select on here, we see this is button 3, button 2, and button 1. This way we can easily reference those specific buttons using our same numbers. So creating these specific names helps us. So again, button 3, 4, 5. So we've created 1 through 4. So that's really going to help us specify those buttons. So what I want to do is I want to place this icon based on this left button, but a little bit over to the right and a little bit below. So if we were going to place this red right exactly at the same location of the button, it would be here on the top and on the left, but I don't want to place it there. I want to place it a little bit lower and a little bit to the right of button number 1. So how do we do that in the code? Well, we can do that. First of all, we're going to shape based on the button, based on the left position of button number 1 in this case, or the top position. And then I want to do is I want to move it a little bit to the left and a little bit down using increment. So as part of our loop, whether it's button 1, button 2, button 3, we're always going to be positioning it based on the button, whether it's button 1, button 2. So this is going to help us place our icon slightly to the right and slightly below the top of that. That's all we have to do. And this loop is going to run for each of the 4 buttons. That is exactly how we build our buttons. That's really it. That's not how we display it, but that's how we build it. It's actually quite simple. It's not a lot of code to build our list. That's all the code, and that's the end of the sub. That's all the code that builds our list. So again, and you'll see I've placed this red. It doesn't matter because once we rebuild the list here, it's automatically going to get reset and replaced automatically. So it's really, really helpful. And you can always change the size and change the look as you see fit. So it's no problem with that. And changing it, of course, we're going to change it automatically when we click on it. So that's how we build the list. Let's move on to our next macro and see just how we get these hovers. Now, how do we get these hovers? Well, you know, inherently shapes do not have a hover, right? In other words, when we hover over a shape, there's no inherent macro that we can run, but we can do it if we run a specific, if we do a specific type of shape here in our insert ActiveX, we can have it. So for example, if I run a specific label on an ActiveX, I can get a hover. So if I click on this particular label here, and then I go into the VBA, I can get a specific, it's called mouse move. So I want to create something so that I run a macro so as soon as I hover over it, something happens. We don't have that on shapes, but we do have that on ActiveX. So let's take a look into the Visual Basic, back we go, and into the sheet macros. Now you're going to see, when we scroll down, you're going to see label 1. That is the one we just created. Label 1, we just created that right here. This is label 1 right here. If we look into the design mode, right, when we want to work with it, we click on design. If the design's off, I can't work with it. There's nothing I can do, but make sure you click the design mode. Now keep in mind, when you're working with these in design mode, nothing's going to work. Nothing's going to work, right, when you're in design mode. You see that? So keep in mind, nothing works when you're in design mode. So you always want to go out of design mode to get something to work. Keep that in mind. So if you're frustrated why isn't it working, most likely because you're in design mode. In design mode, you can work with it. So when we click on design mode, we click properties here, we see our properties for this shape here, this ActiveX control, and we can change the name here, we can change the size, and we have different settings. And let's say we want some action on hover. We want some action on hover. Oh, also one more thing before I get to it. So we can see this shape, but how do we make it transparent? How do we make it so that we cannot see it? So we get out of design mode. You see there, you don't see any of these labels. You don't see them because I've made them transparent background, transparent background. So that is one of the special techniques. So when we click on this back in design, when we click on this, you want to make it transparent, just double click on this. And of course the border style none, then it becomes transparent. You see now it's transparent. When you're working with this, keep it, you might want to keep it white while you're sizing it, while you're working with it. And when you're ready to go, then just double click here or select the drop down list and make it transparent. This way you can't. So now, how do we create some type of an action when a user hovers over this? Well, let's go into that, back into the VBA, and here's our click. Now this is, we can run something when we want to click on it, but in this case, right now, not yet. I only want to do it when we hover over it. So let's click on mouse move. Mouse move, that is when we want something to happen. So if we do message box test, we can see now that when we hover over it, now remember, when we're in design mode, nothing's going to happen. Out of design mode, hover over it, and we have our pop-up right here. So hover over it, pop-up. So now we see how we can get some action when we hover over it. So continuing on, we know that now if we want to click on it, we can do something else. So let's go back into that and just move this message box. Now we want to click on it. We want something to happen when we click. So all we have to do is select the label. It's already selected in this case, and we want to click it. Now we want something to happen when we click it. So we label 1 click, and make sure that if you change the name, if you change this name here, if you into design mode, if you change this name, it's not going to work. So we want to make sure that we change the names first to the name you want, then run the code. So outside of design mode, now when we click on it, we see our test. So now it's when we click on it. So you can do both. So in this case, we've done both. I've done macros that when we hover over it, something runs, and when we click on it, something runs. So what is that? So let's take a look at that. So you see in our macros, we have some action when we hover over it. It looks like the shape underneath is actually going to change. And when we click on it, something happens and our filter runs. So we've got both of those things going on. We have actions that when we hover, and we have actions that when we click. So I wanted to show you exactly how we do both of those. So back into the VBA we go, and we'll see just how we did that. Now I've also named these specific. Let's take a look at that back into the shapes, clicking on the shapes. If you don't have this selection pane in your quick access, of course you can find it into the page layout and selection pane here. Page layout and selection pane. You can find it here too. I've just put it up here for quick reference. So I've also named these into hover 1, hover 2. So you can see them right here. Hover 1, and the reason I cannot select them, right, again, is because we're not in design mode. Clicking on design mode allows me to select those, so keep those in mind. Remember, design mode allows us to select these ActiveX controls. So they're hidden right now, but if we were to display all those buttons behind it, you can see as we So basically the hover 1, the hover 2, hover 3, and hover 4, these are the 4 names that I've given to our ActiveX labels, because ActiveX allows us to do some action when we hover over it. When we're outside of design mode and we hover over it, we can see. And the reason the icons are not showing up is because I have not made them visible. Of course, if they're here, if they're visible, we can see here. I've made them visible. And those are all of the things that happen. So hovering, we want something to happen. Well, what do we want to happen? Well, what I want to happen is I want to change the color in the back to a specific color. For example, I want to take this shape here and I want to go into format, of course, through VBA, and I want to give it a specific format, which is this one, and then I want to change the font to white. So I want to do those things through VBA. That is what I want to happen. I want to go in through VBA and I want to set it to this specific theme and specific font color. So that's what I want. So we can do that in VBA on hover. So let's go back into the VBA and take a look at this. And if we hover down, if we go down, we're going to see that we have 4 different macros. Remember, we've named them called hover 1 through hover 4. So those are the labels, those are the specific names that I've given them. And we're going to run a macro, one called select 1, select 2, select 3, and select 4. So those are the 4 different macros that I'm going to run when a user hovers over a specific shape. And we can see those in our drop down, what is actually those macros. So when we scroll down, we will see 4 different macros: select 1, select 2, select 3, and select 4. So we've got all those. Remember, they're coming from right here. Select 1, 2, 3, 4. So once we have those, we're going to run these 4 macros. Now they're all essentially the same, except they're just for specific text. The first thing I want to do is I want to set sheet 1, the button set. That is the whole set. What is the button set? Well, that is actually all 4. It's grouped together. Let's go back and take a look at our group. We've called our group the button set right here, button set. And that is an entire group of all of them. If we highlight, we see that all of them in our group. So I'm going to set them all to white. And I want them all to set to white. So the first thing that the user does is when they hover over it, everything goes to white. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the specific shape that we're hovering over. I'm going to change that to blue and the font to white. So the first step, everything goes to white. It happens so fast you can't see it, but really everything goes to white. That means regardless of the one you're hovering, all 4 will go to white. And to do that, we can just set a specific theme here. So that's shape style preset 2. Now if you want to know how we got that, all you need to do is run a macro, and you can record a macro, I should say, and you'll get to that. So if I want to make this white, I could just record a macro, make it white, and you'll see that the shape is given automatically that specific shape style preset 2, that is white. All right, moving on, we're going to set the button set line to visible. This makes sure that there's no lines. Remember, our buttons have no lines, so I want to ensure changing the format sometimes will give them lines. So I want to make sure that there's no, if I just change, in fact, if I just change this and if I comment that out, I think we're going to see them. We'll see some lines appear. We don't want any lines appear. So when we hover, so when I hover over the first one, you'll see the lines appear, right? I don't want those lines. So the next line of code removes those lines, right? I don't want to see these. I want it to look like that they're all together. So removing those lines help. You see, I commented out that line of code. And so now when we hover over it, you'll see that the lines, we don't want those lines. So when we uncomment that line of code, uncomment it, this removes the lines. Line visible equals false. So that gets rid of all those lines. The next thing I want to do is I want to give it the color, the font color of button 1, right? Just this button 1, that's the one we're hovering over, a color index of 2. This is going to give it a white color, And then what I want to do is I want to give it that dark blue color, and that is shape style preset 37. When you record a macro, you'll quickly see that the MSO shape style 37 comes up when we select that dark blue. 37, of course, is that dark blue color here. Is that dark blue when you hover it? It's that darker blue here. That's 37. So that's what I want to assign, and I want to assign that to just one button, and that's whatever button we've selected or high or hovered over, I should say. So that is the specific shape. So we've given it that blue. The next thing I want to do is I want to make sure that button 2, 3, and 4, all of the remaining buttons have the font color of black. So I want to make sure that they all have black. This just ensures that they all have black. So we've given white color number 2, color index 2, to the one we're hovering, and make sure the remaining have black. And all I do is repeat that for 2, 3, and 4, except the only difference is this one we're focused on button 2 that has the shape style that has the white font and the dark blue, and of course in this case button 3 that has the dark blue. So we just go. So that is exactly how we run the macro. That's how we get the specific hover effect over each button. So when we highlight, we get that hover effect just by doing that. So now we're going to move on to click. So when I click it, I want something to happen. I want a few things to happen. I want the name to go here, I want the icon to go here, and I want, of course, I want the run the advanced filter, which gives only our polo names. We can close this for now. So that is what I want to happen. So when we click it, we also have some macros that we want to run. So let's take a look at that. So back into our on sheet macros, we'll see we've covered over hover, which is mouse move, but now we want to focus on the click. So what happens when we click on hover button number 1? What happens when we click on number 2? So here we've got a few things. The first one, I want to run a macro called hide pop-up. That's the first thing I want to do. And what is that? Well, that simply hides our pop-up. It's simply when I click on something, I don't want this pop-up to show up anymore, so I want it to hide it. So we've run a macro called that, and let's go over that macro now. In our drop-down list, if we scroll up here, we see a macro called hide pop-up. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to run a loop. We're going to define the picture number as long, and then with sheet 1, what I want to do is I want to hide the entire button set. That's important. I want to hide that so the whole group gets hidden. And what is that? That simply is going to hide our group. So when we have, if I select our group here, it's going to hide it. So when we go back into the selection pane, I shouldn't have closed it, and we want to hide the button set. This is our button set, and I want to hide it. It's just simply going to unhide it. But we still have the icons. The icons are independent, right? So we need to hide those individually too through VBA. So I'm going to run a loop from 1 through 4, and I'm going to hide these icons. So we can do just that, and we can do that. So we're going to run our loop. So the first thing we want to do is hide the button set, and then I'll also want to hide that outside border. Remember, I also have a different shape called outside border that gives us our border look right here. This is outside border. See, outside border. Of course, this can move and everything. So we have that. We want to hide that too. I want to hide that shape. We can do that through this line of code. Next, we're going to run a small loop, and then we're just going to make each picture, each icon, picture number, visible false. So we're going to hide those individual icons. So that's all we have to do. Just those three components to hide that pop-up. Again, we have the individual shape. Let's click on that, reset it there. And so we have the group that covers all the buttons, we have the border, and then we have the individual icons. So when we select something, we want those hidden. So that macro gets run first. What is the next thing that gets run? Well, once we've hidden the macro, I want to make F3 equal to V4. Why is that? We're going to use that for our advanced filter. Let's take a look at that. Why does F3 become V4? So let's take a look. F3, what is that? V4. What is V4? Well, V4 is our first value. It's V4, V5, V6, or V7 based on whatever the user has selected. And this is going to be used. So we want to have that value so that if in this case I selected t-shirts, I want F3 to be equal, let's close this out, to, in this case, going to be equal to our V5, right? So we're just going to go down the list for each one. So I want that to appear right here. We're going to need that. So let's move on. We want to show up here. So we do that for each one of them in the code. So F3 equals V5, V6, V7. Okay, so it goes through all those. The next thing I want to do is show the selected icon. What is that? That is a macro. And what does that macro do? That is going to take this icon, selected icon, and it's going to display it right here. So how do we do that? Well, we run a macro to do just that. Into the drop-down list, let's take a look at show selected icon. Here's the icon right here, show selected icon. Now, first of all, what I want to do is I want to know which one the user has selected. I have one macro. This one macro is going to run regardless of whatever icon was selected. So we need to differentiate. What I need to do is I need to take this t-shirt name here with the value in F3, and I need to look it up. And I need to look it up here between V4 and V7. I need to find which row it's on, and then what I need to do is once we find the row, I need to pull the link from the column over, in W in this case, and I'm going to take that link and I need to create a picture, and I need to place that picture right here and then size it and place it. So that's what we need to do inside the macro. We can do it just this way. So we're going to define the range because we need to find something, so we need a range to find it in. So we're going to dimension the icon range as a range. And then also we want to do is we want to define the icon row. We need to know the icon row. So if whatever row that icon is located, we can pull up the thing. And then the selected option is a string. We're going to define that as a string. And that's going to be whatever's in F3. That's what we're going to determine as our string. So we can do that right there. So we need to get that. So because I want to find t-shirt, we're going to use the find command, and I'm going to find it in what range? I'm going to find it in this range here. And so we're going to use that find in the VBA. All right, so with sheet 1, again, we're focused on sheet 1, so we don't have to worry about anything else. And what we're going to do is we're going to first delete any shape that might have been here. If we're going to be replacing it, I don't want a shape on top of a shape on top of a shape. I want to make sure we only have one shape, and it's called selected icon, so that when a user selects something different, we are going to hide it each and every time. So what I want to do is each time a user selects a new icon, I want it hidden, right? I want this hidden. I want to delete it. Each time we need to delete whatever's here and create a new one, because we don't want additional so many shapes. We only want one shape or one picture, and that's located called selected icon. So we just want one, so we want to make sure to delete it. If there is no existing selected icon, we don't want an error, so that's why we wrap it in our on error resume next and on error go to 0, so before we delete it, just in case it doesn't exist. All right, next up is F3 is empties exit sub. We're going to run an advanced filter based on whatever's in F3. If it's blank, then we just definitely have nothing else to do, so we'll just exit the sub. All right, the selected option, that's a text, and that's going to be in F3. That is whatever the user has selected. Next up, we need to set the icon range. We went over this range before, V4 to V7. That is we're going to set a range because we need to look for sweatshirts, in this case, sweatshirts, in our selected range here, V4 through V10. I need to find sweatshirts within that range. In this case, it's in V7. So we need to find that here. And then so what we can do is we're going to say set the icon range to V4 through V7, and we're going to find, what are we going to find? I want to find the selected option. And I want to find it in the values and whole. So I'm looking for that. And if it's found, then I want to get the row. If not, icon range is nothing. Those two negatives cancel each other out. So that basically means if the icon range is found, then do something. What are we going to do? Well, the first thing I want to know is I want to know what row it's found on. So the icon row, we're going to define that as to the icon row. This is a range, and then the row that it was found on, the row that it was found on. So that is what's going to tell us where it was found. Next thing, I want to set the picture. So we know the row and we know the column. Let's take a look at that. We know the column, we know our path, our file path for our picture is in W, and now we know the row. So when we know both, we can pull this entire file name and get the picture. It's going to be in W and whatever row was there. So we can do that, and we pull that with the pictures. We're going to insert based on this path, And now, again, we're going to, with the shape range, we're going to lock the aspect ratio. We're going to set a height. We're not making it visible just yet. We're going to give it a name. We always want to give it a specific name so that we always know which one to delete. That's very important. Next up, once we've assigned the name, we can then work with the name. So we're going to end with the shape range and then start with the specific name that we've just created. So with the shape selected icon, we can make it visible. We do want to make it visible, and we want to give it a specific left. In this case, left is going to be based on a cell location. F3 is our cell location. F3 the top and the left, and I want to bring it a little bit to the right and a little bit down. So that places our icon right here into F3. So again, we want, if it was all the way to the top and all the way to the left, it would be about right here. So I want to place it a little bit down and a little bit to the left. So then we select something, it drops a little bit lower. So that's how we do it. If we wanted to move it more to the right, for example, we would just add additional. So if we wanted to make this more to the left, just make this 12, and you'll see it'll appear way off to the right. So all we need to do is just change that, and it'll appear off to the right. So you see, there we go, it's off to the right. So that is how we place our specific icon. Okay, so we've got that. Now we know exactly what happens. We've run through all the, for example, on sheet 1, we've run through the hide pop-up, we've run through the value, and we've run through show selection. So we have all of that. But now, how do we get our advanced filter? So we know exactly how we get the hover. We know what happens when we select. But there's one more thing. We also run an advanced filter, right, as soon as we make a change to F3. So how do we do that? So let me show you how we do that. So on any change to F3, let's take a look back in the code and look on sheet 1. Now we actually made a change. So let's take a look at, we have a worksheet change event, which is right. Let's get rid of this. We don't need that. Label 1, we don't need that. Let's clean this up a little bit. We don't need that. It was for just testing purposes. All right, worksheet change. There's a change. When we make a change, we want something to happen. What is going to happen? If not intersect F3 is nothing. Remember, these negatives cancel each other out. So that means if there's a change, then filter the table. We're running a macro called filter table. Let's take a look at that. It's basically an advanced filter. Clicking on the module called table macros, we have a macro called filter table. It's a very simple macro. The first thing, we don't need the defense in the last row. I didn't use that, for example. I had that temporarily. I've got a fixed last row of 29, but you can change this based on your data. If you want to make it dynamic, you can, of course. For our purposes, we've gone through advanced filters so many times. I'm just going to keep this very, very simple. In this case, we're going to define if F3 is empty, then exit the sub. Again, if F3, which is our value here, if it's empty, there's nothing to filter this list by, so we're just going to exit it out. So that's the first step, just in case, to make sure that we actually do have a value there. Next up, with B7 through J29, that is our advanced filter. What about our results, right? Our results or our criteria, what about that? Well, we're going to do a filter in place. I want to filter it in place this time. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing we need is criteria. What is the criteria? And remember, the criteria, I've put that right here. Main criteria list. Style is our heading. T-shirt is our value. What is this? This is the fixed. It's based on F3. That is our criteria. So that means as soon as we change whatever's in F3, it's going to change here. Style must match the header here in our table. Style. So what we're going to use is our advanced filter is going to go let's clear that out. It's going to go all the way from B7 all the way down to our last row. In this case, it is J29. We're going to take that entire table. We're going to run an advanced filter. We are going to base the criteria on whatever here is in U4. But in this case, of course, there is nothing in U4. Why is that? It's because it's based on what's in F3. And right now, there's nothing in F3. However, if we select an option, we can automatically change it here. Right here into t-shirt. We don't need this. So we now automatically in t-shirts, you'll see, because it's changed automatically based on the formula. So we're going to use U3 through U4 as our criteria in our advanced filter, and then we're going to filter it in place right here. So now we've got that. Let's take a look at how we did that in the code. Our main data is B7 through J29. We're going to run an advanced filter. In this case, we're going to filter it right in place. We're not going to copy it to another location. We're going to filter that right into place. And we're going to use our criteria here, range U3, U4. I just explained, and we're going to unique it's false. You can set it to true, but I've got a lot of duplicate records here just in the sample data, so I've set it to false. And next up, I want this clear filter button to be displayed. What is that? That is our clear filter button right here. We want that. I want to make sure that is displayed, so it's always going to be displayed. In fact, when you clear it out, you can actually hide it. I guess we could do that, but so I made it so that maybe we don't want to display the clear button when there's no filter, but only when there's a filter. All right, so that gives us, we want to make sure this is just a simple button that I've assigned the clear button, and that given that a name of clear filter button, so that shape has that clear name on there. All right, so moving forward, that is it. That is all we need to do. And after that, I want to run the build list. We've been through this macro before. That is the macro that runs right here. We've been through that. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that we rebuild the list just in case we run the filter, just in case there was any issues. Sometimes it gets stretched out, or sometimes based on, because it's so close. Sometimes if we don't rebuild the list, it might be kind of discombobulated. So we rebuild the list. So that makes sure that the list is set right. It's not stretched out. The shape's not. Everything is set just right. So that's all. We just rerun that macro again. So once we run that advanced filter, we can then filter our data. So that just filters our data. And then let's go over clear filter. Clear filter actually basically just clears it and resets our data. So let's take a look at that macro here. All the way into the table macros, here we have clear filter. And all we're going to be doing is showing all data on sheet 1. We're going to wrap that in on air resume next. If there is no filter, this will result in an error if there is no filter. So we just set the sheet 1 to show all data, and we wrapped it in on air resume next, and on air go to 0. Next up, I want to make sure that none of the rows are hidden, just in case. So 7 through 29, entire row hidden equals false. And then I want to clear the contents of F3. When I clear that, there is no longer a filter, so we want to make sure that F3 is clear. We want to make sure it's clear. All right, great. We got that covered, but let's take a look at this. This is not a natural, this is a natural drop-down list. This is not, right? I explained to you how we get that. So how do we get this little thing that looks just like a drop-down list? Well, actually, it's just a shape. It's just a shape. If we take a look at that, we'll see it's just a shape. Nothing different. It looks just like it, but it's not. So I've just duplicated this little drop-down icon, but I've done it in a shape style, so it looks the same. And then I've assigned a macro to it called build the list and show the list. So that's all we have done. It's just a shape. All it is a square and a triangle, and I've duplicated the look and feel of this one, so it looks almost the same. So it gives it that natural look. In fact, you may want to hide this except when the user selects it. I've made it so that it's always displayed, but you could theoretically just hide this except when the user selects on this, but I just wanted to make, for easier purposes, I wanted to always have it show up. So all this is a square and a triangle, and I've assigned a macro to that. Let's go ahead and look. In the assign macro, there's individual parts, so we actually have to click on the individual members of this, then right click, then click assign macro, and you'll see that we have the show pop up, and all that does is display our pop up in our macro. So it's just the display, and of course that macro is right here under drop down list, and of course that macro's here, show pop up, and of course that is the picture name. With sheet 1, what we want to do is we want to hide and exit. So basically what I want to do in this particular macro is I want to duplicate this idea. If we click here and it's showed, if I click here again, it's hidden. If I click here, it's open. I want to duplicate that idea, right? I want to do the same thing for here. If it's showing, if it's showing, I want to hide it. If it's hiding, I want to show it. I want to give it the same exact effect. So how do we do that? Well, basically what I want to do is I want to run a test. If this shape is visible, then hide it. If it's not, show it, right? So I need to run that little test to see if it's visible. And we can do that through this line of code. If shapes the button set, that's our main group here, visible equals true, then hide the pop-up. Hide pop-up is here. However, if it's not, show it. So Otherwise, hide the pop-up, run this hide pop-up, and then exit the sub. So, but if it's not displayed, then shapes the button set, that main group. Of course, we want to make that visible. We want to show the outside border, and then of course we want to run through our loop and show each one of those individual picture icons. However, when we want to hide it, again, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to simply make the button set invisible or false, right? False on visible, false on the outside border. The same thing for each picture. We're going to hide that visible to false. So that's how we have to do the hide and show the pop-up. So now we know exactly how to do that. So now we've gone through that. So we've gone through how to hide. We've gone through how to filter. We've gone through how to hover. We've gone through clicking on it. Let's take a look. Let's get rid of this. We don't need this anymore. And also, when we click another cell, we also make this hidden. How do we do that? Let's just take a look at that on the selection change. That's on sheet selection change. So we'll go down and we see worksheet selection change. Now, if the user makes the selection change F3, we're going to show the pop-up. Otherwise, hide the pop-up. So we're going to run those two macros based on the selection. So for example, if the user selects F3, show the pop-up. If they select anything else, hide the pop-up. Show the pop-up, hide the pop-up. So that's how that works. So that's how we got that. All right, so next up we want to display the picture on the specific table. We'll go over that. I want to show you how we did this as well. The ability to display a picture based on the selection. That's relatively easy. We've gone through that a few times, but we'll go over through one more time. We've got a conditional format here, and that's based on a specific row. So when the user selects anything from B8 through J29, the first thing I want to do is I want to make S3 the target row. S3, and a few of you have seen this before, so bear with me. S3 is our target row right here, S3. Now we're going to base conditional formatting based on S3. So if we go over and we highlight these cells and we go into the home, we click conditional formatting and manage rules, we will see that I've changed based on S3 is equal to row, and all I've done is given it a white font and a dark blue, and I've done that for the entire table. So that's how we get that. But now how do we get this cool shirt to show up right underneath the selected row? Well, we know the picture link is here, right? We know that picture link, and for you this is going to be empty, so make sure you put in your links. I'll include the pictures. So I know where the original picture is located, right here. So all I need to do is pull that picture up and place it right on the line below. So we can do that in this line of code. So we'll see here we have a macro called display picture. How do we do that? So that's in the table macros. We have a macro called display picture here. So we have a selected row. I need to know what user's selected row. And with sheet 1, we're going to do just some very basic things. We're going to, first of all, we've given this the name as item picture. So I want to delete that if it's there before. And of course, we're going to wrap it in on error, resume next, and on error, go to 0, just in case it doesn't exist. That is this picture here. I've assigned that item picture. So regardless of what picture is shown, that picture is going to have the same name, item picture. So it's always going to be the same. So I'm going to delete any old ones in case it was there. And next I want to define the selected row. We know that's in S3 because we need to work on that. And again, we're going to then, just in case, we're going to pull the file name. I need to make sure that file exists. And we can do that with this test here. If the directory of J and the selected row, why J and the selected row? Well, that's where our file name is located, in column J and the selected row. That's how we're going to get our long file name or file path to get it there. So we want to run a test. If the directory of the path is equal to empty, then exit the sub. This is going to test out the link to make sure it's actually accurate. Otherwise, it's going to return. If there's an issue with this, it'll exit the sub. Again, with pictures, now we're ready. With pictures, insert, we know the file path, J in the selected row. With the shape range, we're going to lock. We're going to set it a specific height. We're going to give it a specific name called item picture. Next, we can work with that name, item picture. We can make it visible, and I want to place it. Where do I want to place it? I want to place it in B and one row down. B and one row down. Why one row down? Because I don't want it to be on the selected row. I want it to be. We could do it 2 rows down and just see how that would look. And we could also change this to C just to see how that would look. So we can also display it on a specific column and a specific row. So if we were to change that and we select it, we'll see now it's 2 rows down and it's also in column C. So you can see how we can change that and how it would look. Of course, you can customize this exactly as you see fit, so don't worry about that. All right, so that displays our picture. All right, so we've gotten that. So we've covered in the table macros, we've covered the filter table, how we've covered how to clear the filter. We've also covered how to display that picture in the drop down list. We've covered a lot. We've covered how to build our drop down list. We've covered how to show the pop-up and how to hide the pop-up and to show the selected icons. We've also showed you what we do when we select a specific icon and what happens and what macros run when we select it. We've also showed you how to clear the filter. We've showed you how to automatically change it. Oh, I think we didn't cover this. When we change on D3, something happens. We got to cover that. Let's take a look at that. When we make a change in D3, we want something to happen. Well, what do we want to happen? Let's take a look at that. So if not intersection D3, we want to rebuild the list and clear. We've been over this, building the list, that builds our draw, and we want to clear the contents. So basically what I want to do is if the user has a selected something here and I want to change it, I want to make sure this is cleared, F3 is cleared. So we want to, 1, remove whatever's here and also delete any picture that is here. So that's important too. So when the user makes a change, the list gets rebuilt automatically to the updated details. We went over that macro, but we didn't go over what happens when we change it in D3. So F3 gets cleared out, and the building list, this list, when we build this list, it automatically deletes the picture that is located right here, which is this selected icon. That macro covers deleting that. So we covered that. All right, so we've got that. And then if not intersection, filter table. When we make a change to F3, automatically we're going to run the filter table. We went over that. Any changes in F3 automatically will filter the table. All right, this was a very, very cool training. I hope you liked it, and I don't think you've seen this before. If you have, let me know in the links. Of course, I would love if you check out the dashboard course. That is how I keep these weekly training videos free, unique, and amazing each and every week. Make sure you, of course, subscribe to our channel. I do appreciate your likes, your shares. Also, if you have any questions or need help, please join our Excel for Freelancers Facebook group. We've got nearly 17,000 members at this point today on the recording, Sunday, March 24th, 2019. Thanks so much for joining us, and have a great day.